How'd the first group went really good?
It did, yeah. We're planning for the second one, just running into some just minor hiccups, but we'll figure it out.
When will the second one be?
August 3rd through the 9th.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where will you take them?
Georgetown Lake.
Sweet.
Yeah, so I've never been there yet.
It's
so
awesome.
Once I come back from this next treatment, I should be back like 25th of June or something like that. I'm gonna go do more treatment for the leg and back, get all sorts of different consults. I have, like, my pain is just out of control right now. I've actually had my stimulator off since the 23rd.
It's off.
I haven't been able to last longer than 2 days, but I turned my stimulator off. I stopped taking all my meds because I felt like they were killing me.
The meds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I had 5 meds changed in a single day. Like, they were like, stop these ones, start taking these ones. And I'm like, dude, you're like trying to kill me right now.
Yeah.
And when I did that, I started getting like these weird vestibular, like balance type vertigo issues. And I told them about it, and they were like, just give it like 6 more weeks, come back, we'll follow up. And I'm like, no, fuck that, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I can barely function right now. I'm not doing it. Like, my pain is the worst it's been. I keep telling them that, and it's just like, just take more. Like, no.
Crazy.
So I took it upon myself, which probably wasn't smart, but I stopped taking almost all of my meds on the 23rd and stopped my stimulator. So it's just been a hard adjustment. But like, some of my pain kind of feels better, but a lot of it's getting worse. Yeah. So I'm gonna go do like this ketamine infusion treatment, and I'll be almost in like a sedative state for 72 hours. And ketamine does some like weird stuff with your mind, body, and your nervous system. So hopefully, like, it can kind of help reconnect my pain receptors and tell like my body, like, hey man, you're all right.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that that's kind of what it'll do, because a lot of my symptoms are nerve related.
Because ketamine's like a brain rewiring format, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
So it's pretty wild, man. And so I'm hoping that helps out a bunch with the pain, but I'm going to do all sorts of different consultations to get the stimulator removed, because I feel like that is causing so much pain and discomfort in my like pelvis area. Everything, the way that it stimulates, like, it affects when I go to the bathroom, it affects sleep. Like, I can hardly wear a belt because the wires are right there on this muscle that hurts every time. So wearing a ruck, like, I can't wear a hip belt because of it. It's affecting my quality of life like crazy.
Is this the first time you've had it turned off in a while?
Yeah, so I haven't been able to have it off for longer than 2 days.
Crazy.
And I don't know if that was mental. Like, when I would turn it off, I'm like, all my symptoms are gonna come back. I know it, I can feel it. Yeah. So it's like I would last 2 days and I'd be like, it's too much, I gotta turn it back on. But this time I was like, look, I want this battery pack. I want all of these wires out of my back. Like, I don't care what it takes, I'm gonna push past. So I turned it off. I marked it on my whiteboard, like the time and date, and I was like, I'm beating it. So
that's amazing.
It's still been off, and I go next week to do all my consults, and I'm hoping that I can get this thing removed, because I'll be like, look, I've had it off for almost 30 days at that point.
Feeling better.
Yeah, feeling better in the sense that I feel like this nerve. So I was diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome. It's this crazy nerve syndrome that it can happen on impact. It can kind of happen if you roll your ankle or after a traumatic surgery or something like that. But it basically takes over your nervous system or sympathetic nervous system. So if you get angry, if you get depressed or anxious, like, it immediately affects the pain in my leg.
Crazy.
And so this stimulator was trying to stimulate this nerve root system to be like, hey, like, everything is okay. Like, don't send those signals up here and keep that pain shit down there. But it's just passing through still. So
nerves are weird, man.
it is insane. It's insane.
Nerves are so weird.
Yeah.
So let's start with how you got to this point. If we back way up.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up at?
I grew up just outside Kansas City, in Olathe, Kansas. Grew up there, went to high school. As soon as I graduated, I joined the Marine Corps in 2010. I graduated early so then I could leave as soon as possible because my childhood was not going the way that I figured it should have. So I needed to go do something else.
Do you have a military family?
My grandfather served in the military. I didn't know too much about him. He died when I was younger. My uncle tried to join the Marine Corps, ended up getting medically retired really young. And then, so there wasn't too much of like a lineage in my family. And then when I went in, people were, like my family was pretty excited because I was kind of starting the train back, or the cycle back in the family, so.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And why'd you pick the Marine Corps?
Man, we have the best uniforms. No, so like after 9/11 happened, and then like growing up and following the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, kind of having some of my mentors being like an older generation. I would hang out with my sisters. I have 2 older sisters, and then some of their friends ended up joining the military. I would always hear their stories when they would come back. I started to just get into that like lifestyle. I liked fitness. I was very aggressive, so like fighting and any guns or hunting is kind of how I like to live my life. But then I got into some trouble, so I started to lose sight. But then it was like I ended up going to train mixed martial arts and Kung Fu. And when I got there, I ended up meeting this legend now, Rudy Reyes. I don't know if you've heard of him. Yeah. So he was training at this gym. One of his friends owns this Kung Fu gym, so he would come and spar with some of the guys that worked out there. And I got to meet him, and he was like, introduced himself. He's a recon Marine. He was filming Generation Kill at that time. And so I started watching that, and I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. So then I started to just idolize this guy, and I was like, man, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. Like, I'm going to be like this guy. So it was really cool, man. Like, I feel like, and it's funny that I say this now, because when certain things happen, especially if they're bad, like you always say, like, you know, when people say everything happens for a reason, sometimes you don't want to believe it, but like the more and more wild like circumstances that happen in my life, like I'm starting to believe that everything does happen for a reason.
Yeah, it's all leading to a greater purpose.
Yeah.
Dude, Jimmy and I met Rudy at Sorinex Summer Strong a couple years ago.
Yeah.
He's so freaking jacked.
Yeah.
Like cut up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane.
He was like we would like do seminars all day. Every little like 5-minute break we got, he would be like over in the corner doing a workout.
Yeah.
Jimmy and I are like, this guy's insane, dude.
Yeah. It's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Like, good on him.
Yeah. He's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of like a actor too, isn't he?
Yeah. He played his own part in that Generation Kill. He's done all sorts of different TV shows that I've seen. I actually haven't kept in touch with him, but he was definitely somebody I looked up to.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you start by shipping out to basic?
Yep. Went to basic January 2010. When I graduated that, I started out as a mortarman in 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines. Mm-hmm. So normal infantrymen went on a MU, it's a Marine Expeditionary Unit, like deployment type thing. We floated around the sea, went all over the Pacific Ocean. I got back from there, and then I went and tried out for a Scout Sniper platoon. And I went through this 4-week-long indoc, and then we, like indoctrination, like a selection process. Mm-hmm. We got selected to be in the Scout Sniper platoon, and then we pretty much went straight to Afghanistan after that in 2012. I got to deploy with the Scout Sniper platoon there. which was a good time and like a great preparation for me in my next career, because as soon as I got back from there was actually when I learned about Marsoc, the Marine Special Operations Command. And I was never really one to settle and just get comfortable anywhere. So I was just like, oh, the next best thing, like I want that now. And so like learning about Marsoc, I was just like, well, I'm in the perfect spot in the sniper platoon. I wear heavy rucks all day long. I hike into the mountains all day long and work in small teams. So there's like that. I feel like that's the place for me.
Good preparation.
Yeah, it was cool.
And Marsoc's a raider, right?
Yeah, Marine Raiders.
Okay.
Yep. So once you graduate, if you graduate from the individual training course, which is our like 9-month long special operator school, you become a Marine Raider.
Okay.
You'll hear like critical skills operator. So we used to be called CSOs, and it's still a term that's used. It's a Marine Raider or critical skills operator.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yep.
And how was selection for that?
It was good. So it was in January of 2013. So I moved quickly through my career. Like I didn't rest hardly at all. So I was a new guy constantly, which was great. But so January 2013 happened to be very cold over there in North Carolina, and it was a 6-week-long selection course. It was good. It was a good eye opener to what I was about to get into.
Was it super hard?
I would say so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't easy by any means, you know. And there was a lot of rucking, a lot of running, a lot of land navigation. And where we were doing it in North Carolina, like terrain association, so being able to see the ridges and the mountains, and you know, you can actually see fingers out here, like you can tell what terrain you're on. Out there, it's so dense, like it's so hard to tell where you're at. So it's like there's multiple times when I'd be looking around and I'm like, I am super lost right now. So yeah, it was there was definitely some super scary moments where like you feel like you're absolutely lost, and there would be times where I'd throw my ruck off and I'd be like, I don't know what to do. Yeah, I don't know what to do. I don't know where I'm at. But you just got to put the ruck back on and start going, because you know, like there's time limits for everything. And most of the time you're just second guessing yourself. Like you know what you're doing, but you just got to keep
those thoughts start creeping in.
Yep.
How heavy were some of those rucks?
So you had to have 45 pounds. You had to show up with 45 pounds minimum without water. I think it was without water and food. And so then when you add your water and food, like you're getting up to 55, 60 pounds, and you're wearing it for some distance. Our timed evaluated ruck runs were 12 miles. And you would have to do those in under a certain amount of time. So I think it was 2.5 hours.
Under that 15-minute mile.
Yep.
So you're jogging.
You're jogging. Yeah, you're definitely moving.
The ruck.
Yeah.
Did you see a lot of guys quit?
Oh, yeah. Especially like in the times where people didn't know where the end was. You know, it's like they don't tell you that for a reason, because they're trying to help you or to get you to push past that, like, that mental barrier that you have, that, like, it's probably, I'm not going to say everybody has that demon that comes into their head when you're pushing through something, but I'm pretty sure it's 99.9% of the people out there. When you're pushing through something that's that hard, and you don't know the time limit, you don't know the distance, you don't know where that sheep or that goat or that elk is going to be, like maybe it's just over this next ridge, and you get there and it's not there. Like that's when people say, like, dude, I'm done. I can't make it to the next one, like, because I don't know if it's going to be there.
They set expectations of a finish.
You just have to understand that, like, there is an end point, but you just can't stop to get there. Like, you got to keep pushing, because like, you can't stop time.
Yeah.
So that's what we would always say. You can't stop time. This is going to end. Like, we're going to get to the finish line, and we're going to get there together. So you would kind of get your group, and you'd know, like, collectively, even though it's an individual effort, like, you got dudes that you look up to when you're there, and, like, you kind of, like, stick together. So you know, when those thoughts start creeping in, you, like, look to your left and your right, and you're like, I'm not going to quit for these guys either.
Yeah.
So you
That
can't do it on yourself. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many guys did you graduate with?
So let's see, we started selection with about 130 people, and only 44 of us got selected.
Crazy.
Yeah. So there's 2 phases. The first 3 weeks, we started with that, like, 100 plus people. And then we went to the next phase with 90, and then only 44 of us got selected. And then from there, you get your date to go to the individual training course. This is where you become, or train to become, the critical skills operator or Marine Raider.
Okay.
And then that course is 9 months long. So there was about 80 of us that start that course.
Okay. How was that?
That was fun.
I bet.
It was really cool because, like, you start out with the basic level infantry training, which is a nice refresher, and then you get introduced to some other special tactics stuff. And then you start progressing and, like, learning a lot more of the advanced techniques, like with the advanced shoot house skills and
CQB stuff.
yeah, and then all sorts of other reconnaissance techniques and unconventional warfare techniques and things like that. Like, it was a huge eye opener to, like, the special operations community, but it was only the beginning. So
just a small taste.
yeah.
And this was like 2014.
Yep. So I started ITC, or the Marine Special Operations training, in January of 2014, and then as soon as I graduated that, I started. So I graduated October of 2014, and then checked into basic language course for 6 months and studied Arabic. So I studied modern standard Arabic for 6 months, and then was checked into my team in 2015.
And are you keeping in contact with your family through all this?
Yeah, you do. You get some time off through the course. I didn't really take any vacation days, like, especially during those training times. Like, you don't want to I didn't want to sacrifice my time and, like, risk getting hurt or risk, like, missing days, or like, because I set such a high standard for myself and like this intense goal, I didn't really want anything to get in the way of that. So I didn't venture out too much when I was going through these schools. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we stayed in contact, and because of, like, the high tempo I've always had when I was in the military, or, like, before that, and then coming to the special operations, my family kind of knew, like, it was like maybe once a year that we'd see each other. Crazy. Which was normally Christmas time. Thankfully, I could go home almost every Christmas during my career, so that was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And when you were, like, a little kid, did you kind of have a thought that this might be where you're headed, special operations?
Man, I didn't really know. Like, when I met Rudy and I learned about the reconnaissance Marines, I thought that was super cool. Like, I would have, like, recon posters up, like Swift, Silent, Deadly, and I would always really enjoyed, just, like, the elite groups. Mm-hmm. I was a really small, scrawny kid, though. Like, I didn't know if my little bones would be able to take it at that time. So I don't know, but I always set the high standards for myself. I always wanted more.
Yeah.
So I knew that I would at least try.
Were you a wild kid?
I was, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little hellion.
Yeah. My parents would, they'd be able to tell you some wild stories. I put my mom and my dad through some crazy stuff, but Thankfully, they're still here for me today. So
it's fairly common with special operations, though. Just that, like, lots of energy, kind of turbo mode all the time, pushing things to the limit.
Yeah, I did a lot of skateboarding. I was decent at that when I was younger. Snowboarding. I mean, we were in Kansas, so there's not much mountains out there. But yeah, I mean, I did anything extreme that I could find. I got into a lot of fights because I was an ornery kid. I was very aggressive. I started drinking at a young age. I started experimenting with other things at a young age, and once I started to go down that bad path is when I found that gym, and I actually started looking into fitness more. And then when I really needed something, it came to me, I guess, kind of like everything does happen for a reason again, because I found my recruiter, the Marine recruiter, and I talked to him one time, and then it was that was kind of the end of it. I was just like,
yeah.
Because once I talked to the recruiter, it was like I was committed at that point. When I heard everything about it, I told him, I was like, if I join, this is exactly what I want. I want infantry. I want to go to recon right away. Mm-hmm. Well, if I wanted to go to recon, I would have had to wait 8 more months. But the trajectory of my childhood and my high school life was going in a different direction. So I was like, look, I need to go as soon as possible. Yeah. And so he's like, well, you can go in as just an infantry contract. I was like, all right, screw it. I'll do that, and then I'll try to go to recon later if I can.
So you went right after high school graduation?
So I actually graduated in December of 2009. I went to an alternative school. Okay. And it afforded me the opportunity to do extra credits. And I ended up graduating 6 months early so I could go to boot camp in January. Because I turned 18 in December, went to boot camp in January, and then came back and walked with my class in May. Yeah.
After boot camp.
After boot camp.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. I came back in my blues and walked in the graduation.
So do you feel like the military kind of saved you from a really nasty path?
100%. Yeah. I had a pretty addictive personality. I was, like I said, I was very aggressive, so I just wasn't mixed in with the right crew. I experimented with several different drugs and things like that. I didn't like authority, so it was just not going the way that I pictured my life to be going at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So jumping back up, jumping forward, 2014, you're now a Raider through the 9-month school. What happens next?
So when I was actually in the basic language course, we get assigned to our unit or our team. So I was assigned to the 2nd Marine Special Operations Battalion. So we called it 2nd IMSOB back then. Mm-hmm. And I was assigned to Hotel Company Team 2. When I got the call from my team chief, he's the highest enlisted on a special operations team. He called me, welcomed me to the team, said, "Hey man, we're going to this training down in Florida for a couple days or a couple weeks. We'll hit you up when we come back because we're signing you up for airborne school and this and this and this." So I was super excited. Well, a few days after they get down there, we see on the news that there was a helicopter that crashed over down there in Florida, and 7 Raiders were killed. And I didn't know any of those guys at that time. I didn't know who it was, and then I put 2 and 2 together. I was like, holy shit, my team's down there. Mm-hmm. But my team chief ended up calling me later on, that week, and said, "Hey man, the team's all right. I'm sure you saw another team ended up crashing during a training exercise, and there were 7 Raiders that were killed." Crazy. And so while I'm checking into my team, all of these guys are now going to these back-to-back funerals. and I'm kind of getting the outside perspective of like what happens to these guys during a mass casualty like that during training as a brand new guy. Yeah. So it was very eye-opening to like see, I mean, I've been through all the training and stuff before, but like the bond that these guys had, like the memories that these guys shared, the things that they said about them, after they passed, like it was just wild to see in that small community being such like largely impacted by that. Was wild.
It's a big event.
And they had just gotten back from a deployment where several dudes had already been killed. So it was just insane to see them have to deal with stuff like that. And then we were about to leave 7 months later for another combat deployment to Iraq.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to start.
Yeah.
Super unique.
And it was like, that was kind of like my realization of the like, kind of just like take your emotions and shove them down and worry about them later type mentality. Because we didn't really have time to worry about ourselves. It was just like, well, we got another mission to deal with, so let's just keep pushing through it.
No time, yeah.
No time. And then there's that stigma behind the whole mental health thing when, like, if you feel like you're kind of emotionally wrecked, if you want to go talk to a psych, like, you're worried your buddies are going to be like, well, he's just too weak, he can't handle it. It's things like that. So, I mean, inevitably, nobody goes to get help.
And they don't want to lose their job or the fear of losing their spot on the team.
Dudes are scared to get red flagged and being like, well, if I tell them that, I am super depressed, then they're going to say, well, you need to take a break. But come to find out later on when I actually was needing help and went to seek help, that's not the case whatsoever. So.
Yeah, it's kind of a false reality.
Yeah, because when we came back from Iraq on that trip, I went to several schools. I went to free fall school. I went to our advanced sniper course, which was amazing. And then during that next workup to our next deployment on July 10th of 2017, a very similar accident happened. There was a plane crash that happened over Mississippi. They killed 16 Marines, and 7 of them, again, were from my company. One of them was in my team, and one of them was actually one of my best friends. His name was Talons Reach. I got the phone call that night saying that their plane had just crashed, and these are the guys that were on the plane, and Talon was one of them, and he actually has you on his paperwork that he wants you to go notify his wife.
Crazy. And
dude, I lost it. Couldn't hold it in. I was like, are you like, I can't do that. There's no freaking way I can do that. And, like I gained my composure and told him, all right, like, I'll be there. I showed up and had to get in my uniform and
fly out there.
They were
drive.
We lived like really close together. So I drove to the battalion and then had to meet with those guys, had to get briefed on, what actually happened, what to say to the family, how to do all of this stuff. So it was very formal. I had to go with a chaplain and then another escort. And, knocking on that door in the uniform and having her see me for the first time, it was to date probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
She knew right away.
She knew immediately. And then it sucked because then she associated me with his death, and so it was very hard for us to stay friends or for her to see me again because it would kind of just remind her of that time when Talon passed. Luckily, we've been able to, like, now we're really good friends. We still stay in touch, but those moments were very hard. And now I kind of, looking back at the crash that happened in 2015, it was like, holy shit, dude, this just happened to us again.
Yeah.
And it was real at that time. And now I'm going to 7 funerals back to back. And now I'm seeing all the families mourn and my teammates mourn. And now I'm getting the new guys in. And like, how do I now change my attitude to not be angry at these guys for nothing, because now I'm just trying to deal with all of my emotions and somehow have to be normal and somehow still have to be a leader and deal with everything that's going on in my head. Mm-hmm. Because the last thing I wanted to do was go get help. And because exactly that, I had a team that I had to take care of. I had guys that I had to take care of, and I had a job I had to do. So I was like, well, I'll deal with it later.
There's no time.
And it was, the way I dealt with it back then was very unhealthy. It was a lot of booze. I mean, every night, getting home, drinking until I fall asleep, waking up, going to work, coming back home, drinking until I fall asleep. It was...
Are you single at this time?
No, so I actually... my wife now, Hannah, her and I met about a year before the crash happened. So she had met all the guys that, had ended up dying in the plane crash. And she was friends with Talon, friends with Sarah. So she was pretty affected from that as well. But it was good for me to have that support network. But also, the spouse side of things, when something like that happens to us, at the time, we don't realize all of the stress and all of the hardship that we're putting on them, because it's like, well, I'm coming home and I'm just drinking and I'm not the nicest person. Mm-hmm. All I'm worried about is work. All I'm worried about is the next mission. And then you come home and you're drinking like that. You're not taking care of yourself. It was just an endless cycle of just bad habits and just kind of destructive type coping mechanisms that did not work.
How much were you drinking every night?
Oh man. I don't know. A couple.
A lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably have 4 to 6 beers a night, but
just trying to numb it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the time, you feel like, it's just I'm just taking the edge off, and the next thing you know, you're 6 beers deep, and now you're drunk, and now I'm falling asleep and trying to get up and doing the same thing, but now I'm hungover and I'm slower and I'm still going into shoot houses, and it's like you don't understand at the time the effect, the compounding effects that stuff has, because it's I learned about this later with TBIs after I started to really realize, I started to slow way down after this crash happened, because all the alcohol going into shoot houses, I went to this course that it's like a CQB master's course, if you will. So you do a lot of CQB and then you do a lot of breaching. Yeah. So the close quarters battles, so you're in small shoot houses, super loud, concussions all day long, throwing flashbangs in, blowing up doors, and then every night going home and drinking. So I'd have all of these little minor TBIs from all of this stuff. And then next thing you know, my memory, my concentration, my reaction times, everything was slowing down. Crazy. There was times where I would forget my entire kit, my helmet, my body armor, everything. I would leave it at home for whatever reason. And I know I'm going to go into the shoot house. And I'm like, what in the hell did I just do? So I'd have to go home. But it was honestly at that time when I started to see, I couldn't hardly remember anything. It was insane. And everything was getting slow. I felt like I would get into the team room and I would just sit there blank. I would look at the computer and I'd be like, I don't even know what I'm doing in here.
Crazy.
And it was honestly I started to hit that wall, that mental fatigue, that like brain fog, like extreme fatigue. And I talked to my wife, well, she was my girlfriend at the time, and I said, like, there's something wrong. There's something going on. Like, I need to figure it out. So that was the first time. It was in 2018 that I went to try to go get help. So I went to my my medical officer, and I was like, hey, man, like, my brain, like, something is going on. Something's not right. Like, these are kind of my habits right now. And I went and got evaluated for TBIs and ended up going through some initial treatments then, and kind of started my first round of like talking to people about like things that happened. But at that point, like I kind of didn't really care still. And then I started training for this next deployment for Iraq in 2020.
Did he have anything that was going to help you out?
Man, I tried all sorts of different things. Like I did a lot of occupational therapy, and then like a lot of eye vision therapy. So lots of balance, lots of hand-eye coordination, and then getting into like cognitive behavioral therapies and like brain games, things like that. So
stay sharp.
Yeah. So Marsoc right now is starting and developing these like cognitive behavioral games and methods and things like that to help training the mind and body connection. So it's awesome to see the development, because they're really starting to push like the cognitive radar is what they call it. So it's like, not only can we shoot, move, and communicate in the shoot house and things like that, but it's like they're starting to train the brain to be able to do those like minute tasks and under extreme stress. So awesome. Like all of these different puzzles, and there's so many apps out there that help like keep our brains fresh, like the Brain HQ or things like that. Like you can just play these little mind games that help out. Yeah. And I didn't realize how much that would help my memory and my attentiveness and my reaction times, but it was actually pretty cool, man. Once I started doing all of these things, like I really started to get fast again. I started to be able to think again. I wasn't taking any medications. I wasn't taking any drugs. I was able to stop drinking a lot. And then, I took that very seriously. So that was like my time for like my mental health clarity. But it was just like these brain games that I would do all the time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And that was before your next deployment?
It was, yeah. And so it was, that kind of allowed me to reset my goals. You know, it was like, because I started to get comfortable. Like I was like, well, I can just kind of stay in the team. I can manage this. I can just be an operator. But that wasn't like who I wanted to be. I always wanted more. And so, so when I started this next workup, I started to commit myself to another selection. I started to train up and started to like forecast that like I wanted to go to Delta selection. So I really started to train my mind and my body for that. I was doing a lot more rucking, a lot more running. I got into more of the endurance style fitness, so doing triathlons, running long distances for marathons and all sorts of other different things. And before this Iraq deployment in 2020, I was probably the most fit that I've ever been, and it was great because I was working on my nutrition, my mental health, my fitness. Yeah, it was awesome. And so I had set that goal, like when I come back from this deployment, I'm going to do another year of training, and then I'm going to go try out for Delta Force. And so I had all of these plans, man, like mapped out. Yeah. And it was cool because like now we had this stellar team, dude. Like these guys were they were hungry. Yeah. They were younger. They were just like, I mean, I had a team of just like beasts. It was really cool.
How big's your team?
So we have 12 operators, and then we get attachments of all sorts of different guys. So whenever we deployed, we had 22 guys that we deployed with.
So like medics and
We
CCT stuff.
We had 2 medics. We had a JTAC, which is like the like a CCT for aircraft. We had communications guys. We had some intel guys.
Yep.
We had a dog handler, an explosive ordnance technician. So we had 22 guys deploy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So this team's just a bunch of studs.
Yeah, man. Like we had, which it was also crazy because we had, I think, 9 operators who were snipers on the team, and which is like kind of unheard of. You know, you'll have some teams with a few snipers on them, but we had 9 snipers. We had a bunch of, we call them master assaulters. That school that I was telling you about with the CQB and the breaching, we call it our master assaulter course. But we had several of those. We had several JTACs, which are joint terminal air controllers or attack controllers. And then, man, we just had a really stacked team. And lots of really sharp guys.
And where'd you guys deploy to?
So we deployed to northern Iraq up in Mosul. We spent a month and a half maybe in the city of Mosul, which was pretty surreal, seeing the destruction of that town. I was in Iraq in 2016, but just down south a little bit. So after ISIS took over in 2014, they just pushed through the whole like northern section of that region. And when they took Mosul, like they took a lot of it. So when you go there, it's just like there's so many like rubbled out parts of the village, and they're still all over the place, but they're hiding within the population at this point. So it was a lot more to deal with. Like there was a lot kind of like you had to be a little bit more cautious when you go out in town.
All the time.
Yeah. And there was no real like out in town runs. Like it's always, you're in your armored vehicles, you're going to one place and then coming back, doing missions like that. And then we moved from there to the dam, which was just a little bit more outside of town. But it gave us the opportunity to train our partner force more. And we actually had mountains at our disposal now. So we could do just a huge, wide variety of training up there, which worked out because where those mountains were, we were able to do a lot of like cave and tunnel training, because we come to find out like ISIS had kind of reverted back to an insurgency phase where they're like hiding out in caves and doing their manufacturing of IEDs and their planning and things like that inside of caves and tunnels.
Crazy.
It was wild.
Yeah, that's wild.
So we kind of had to make and develop like a subterranean warfare type SOP, like standard operating procedure. So we would spend a lot of time up in the mountains, running around, trying to, learn how to best attack these caves. Yeah.
Crazy.
So it was interesting. We played a lot with a lot of explosives, trying to figure out how to like maybe collapse the caves or open up the entrances more and things like that. So we got pretty innovative with that. But we went on several missions, and we were actually, once our partner force would like clear out the caves or tunnels, we would go in and we would, look through them, make sure that they were actually clear, and then help them collect some stuff. And man, the way that they dug those things out, like the intricate tunnel systems, it was insane.
They're just using hand tools, digging these things out.
That's what it seemed like. So I ended up finding this weird shovel that looked like there was a pick on one end. This dude it looked like he would hammer it out, chisel, and then like take the other side of the shovel and like kind of scrape the ceiling and do that.
Crazy.
I'm like, these guys are just little moles, man. Like, what do they do with all the
Oh
dirt?
yeah, they're there all the time.
Yeah, it's wild.
What'd you
So
find in
crazy.
these things?
You'd find all sorts of stuff. I mean, there was one in particular that we went in where we found like, every time you would go in, you would come in and there would be like an immediate sharp turn, and it just continue to zigzag in there, and then it would open up to like a berthing area. So there would be like sleeping quarters, and then there'd be cooking quarters, and you'd see like the ventilation tubes that like go up. So that would be another way to find them too, is if they had like fires or they're cooking, you'd see the smoke coming up out of the ground. So it was pretty crazy. Yeah.
Who was your partner force?
We had the Iraqi CTS is what they were called.
So they're working with you guys.
Yep. Yeah, and they were actually really good, man. Like, we would train them up to try to work at night. Mm-hmm. They were still, I mean, every unit needs work, but for the most part, they were good.
All right, let's talk more about these caves.
Yeah. Yeah, so once our partner force would go into these caves and clear them out, we would get the opportunity to go in and look through them, clear them out, but then we would kind of have to do that like assessment. Like, what do we do with these caves now? Do we blow them up from the inside? Do we try to drop a bomb on them? Because we've tried to drop several bombs on these caves, and it's like, well, it's in the side of this mountain. You think you're going to blow up this whole mountainside? Like, it's not going to happen. So, like, okay, let's try to thread the needle with a bomb, a 500-pounder, something like that, bunker buster. Let's put it in the cave entrance. Well, you'd do it, and it would just open it wider. Oh, man. So we would bring a whole bunch of Bangalores, a whole bunch of like these satchel charges, so just a bunch of C4 stacked on top of each other and taped together. We'd make all of these like wild string of explosives inside of these caves. So we'd be just like shoveling Bangalores in there and strapping them all up, and then that was actually pretty cool to me.
Yeah,
like
the explosive work.
Yeah, I'm like in there, tying up these explosives inside of this ISIS cave, like man, I'm about to blow this mountain up from the inside. That's kind of freaking cool. So there were several caves that we got to blow up like that, and I mean, I felt like an old miner, coming out covered in dirt and just like
C4.
Pulling this wire thing. Yeah.
Oh man,
it was actually pretty cool, man.
That's awesome.
But very, very intimidating being inside of them, because there's times where you're like, I mean, you have full kit on. I would have my pistol out in front of me with my light shining, just because
it's tight.
I couldn't hold my rifle up because I can't present in any way. So it had to be my pistol, and now my whole side's exposed. Like, I can't really, or I'm crouched down trying to crawl. So you really had to think small when you're in there.
Oh, was the partner force getting shot at a lot of times going in?
It honestly depended. So like these first few ones, luckily we did not take contact. There was like surrounding villages where there would be like suspected bad dudes in, so we would kind of have to, make sure that the partner force was able to secure the village and then go into here, so then they didn't get shot in the back or whatever it was. So our first few missions were dry holes. There was nobody in there. And then, as I had a team full of a lot of new guys, like I was saying, they were very hungry for combat. They were very hungry to work. But being hungry for combat and like wanting that firefight, wanting to get in that engagement, it can lead to just like some people being complacent. I don't think that had too much of an effect on our team, but everyone just wanted it so bad. Every time we would talk about planning for a mission, they're like, "Are we going to kill anybody?" It's like, well, like that's not always the mission. Yeah. Like the mission is to help these guys out and like go clear out these caves, and we'll find what we find. But we're always ready for it, right? And we, I guess we got what we wished for, because a week or two later, after one of our missions, we got tasked with a very large cave clearance operation. We got information that there was some ISIS fighters bedded down in a number of caves. They had been watching it for several weeks. They had seen 7 ISIS fighters coming in and out, and it was just where they were was in the side of this like really steep mountain. There was these massive rocks that they had dug out, and you could see the huge cave entrances in some of them. And then some of them you could only see that they would just walk in and disappear. Mm-hmm. So I think like by the time that we had been given this mission, they had only seen 7 fighters and maybe 4 or 5 cave entrances. And every time we would map them out on the map, figure out where they are. And now that my team is tasked with this, we came up with a plan. We had 50 partner force. We also had to hit this village that was below the mountain range because there was a suspected guy down there. So now we had to split up the team. I took the guys to land on the caves and go in there. So we had 2 helicopters that landed at the same time. When we landed up here on the mountain, I walked up and met the ground force. There was already guys set up there because at this point, like this operation became so large, we had a lot of people in play.
All Marines?
No, there was Marines, there was Army, Navy, of course, for our medics and all sorts of stuff like that. We had 50 of our partner force guys out there, so 25 with us and then 25 with the other force that landed down there at the little village. Mm-hmm. We had some French special operators with us, and then I think that was about it. So I had 8 French operators with me, 25 partner force, and then 5 Americans right off the bat. Mm-hmm. And so we started our trek up the mountain, and we met the ground force. And when we met the ground force, the first 2 dudes that I talked to was one of my buddies, Isaiah, and then one of my buddies, my old team commander, Major Mo Novice. He was one of the ones that was ultimately killed in this mission, but he was the first one that gave me a massive bear hug right when I got to the top. Yeah. So we were joking around because when he was my team commander and on my previous deployment, so team by team commander, he was the captain of the team, so he was the only officer in the team that was like, they're basically the face of the team. They talk to all the higher level officers and political advisors and things like that with the higher enlisted guys. So our team chief and team commander are the 2 like top dogs in the team.
Gotcha.
So I met up with Mo on top of this hill, gives me a big old hug, and we start talking about like what's going on down there. They had just dropped, I think, 8 bombs. So there was, I think, 4 2,000-pound bombs on these cave entrances. There was several 500-pounders. And the thought was, well, hold on, I got to back up.
Yeah.
Because I missed some important stuff.
Let's do it.
So when we got tasked with this mission, like I said, there were 7 known fighters.
In these caves.
We have this plan set up. We have all of these dudes ready. We've been doing rehearsals. 24 hours before we're about to insert, we start getting intel that there's now 8 fighters.
Oh, no.
There's 9 fighters. We get another, like, I think, it might have been 8 hours before we were about to insert. They're like, there's 12 dudes out here now.
Oh, man.
There's 13, there's 14. Now we're like 2 hours from insert, and they're like, there's 19 guys out there.
Did they know you were coming?
Huh. You'd think so, huh? Like, somebody talked.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we told our partner force, or we told whoever 24 hours before we were about to go in, and then conveniently, or ironically, whatever the word is.
10
like,
more
now
guys show up.
Yeah.
Crazy.
You don't think that those are reinforcements? Like,
yeah.
You don't think they know we're coming?
Yeah.
So I mean, I laugh about it now, but it was a very like kind of scary thing. I kind of got goosebumps thinking about it, because when they said that, it was just like, I've been in a couple firefights before, you know, I know what it feels like to get shot at.
Uh-huh.
Half of these dudes are like cheering. They're like, oh yeah, man, like we're about to get in a gunfight.
They don't know.
And, you know, it's hard to tell them, like, you don't want to be like, look, like, shut up. Like, you don't want to be excited about this, because that's what they trained for. Like, they want to get out there and they want to fight, which I love. But when the first rounds go down range, like, it's real. Like, you got to understand, if something happens, like, it's very real.
Life or death.
So, you know, the dudes were ready. They were definitely ready for it. And by the time we get out there, they dropped those bombs. So I think it was 4 2,000-pounders, 4 500-pounders, and they were like hitting the right on the cave entrances. So they were trying to open them up more and kill or injure the dudes inside, the ISIS fighters inside.
They hit them hard.
Hit them hard.
Around 8 bombs.
Yep.
That's insane.
And there were also snipers in place and machine gunners in place. So as soon as the bombs went off, you start seeing people scatter. So now the snipers get to engage, machine gunners get to engage, and then we're landing. So when we land and we get up there, I talk with Mo and we're working everything out. And then now we start our trek down the mountain. So we're at the highest peak on top of this thing, and now we walk down the finger to go get them. And we had this whole systematic approach. We were basically going to set up security all around the tops of these mountains and kind of just work our way down. At one point, there was just, you know, a couple caves that were further down the line than we noticed. The sniper started calling out different things that were lower and lower, and one of the elements ended up splitting up and getting a little bit lower than intended. So my element is now clearing out these caves. We had already engaged a dude in a cave, and now we are doing, we're just checking out that cave. There was a suspected IED, so it took us a little bit longer to clear that. Our EOD tech had to come up there, check it, make sure that there was nothing crazy going on. And then we got in there, made sure that bad dude was dead, did our quick searches on him, and then continued on to the next caves. And so it was like, that guy right there was a testament that, like, there's more caves, there's more fighting positions than we thought there were out here. So now we move on, and now we're looking into like one of the main caves. And like, just to paint the picture of like how wild these things were, like our first thing whenever we get to a cave is we're going to throw some sort of explosive in there just to like kind of, clear it, kind of rumble them up if there's somebody right in there. So I threw this grenade in there. It's an anti-structure munition, so it's almost a full pound of C4 inside of this thing. It packs a big old punch. So I threw it up in there, and it explodes and shoots all sorts of dust everywhere, and like your kind of brain gets a little rattled. And once the dust clears and you look in there, it settles. There's this dead ISIS fighter in there with a full combat load, like magazines, everything. He's got an M4 like laying right next to him. There's an M16 over here, like an old school M16 next to him. There's an AK over here. There's another machine gun here.
Dang.
And then mounted into the wall is a belt-fed machine gun, like looking down into the valley. Like these dudes were
mounted on the rocks.
Mounted on the rocks. There was this small little crawl space that you would crawl up, and then they would mount it. So they're like,
you can't hit them.
You would not ever be able to kill that dude.
Crazy.
If you're coming up from that valley, like it was insane. And as I'm looking in there, like evaluating all this stuff, taking it all in, I hear this hell break loose behind me, and the other element is taking contact. And it's machine guns, it's grenades, explosions, all sorts of stuff. Like it is madness right off the bat. But you know, knowing that it's my team, they're calling it in over the radio, it's all good. I keep doing what I'm doing. But all of this is happening like seconds. And next radio call comes in, and there's a casualty. And at first, like, it sounded like it was a partner force casualty. So I immediately continue to do what I'm doing. I'm talking to my partner force saying, like, hey guys, like, focus, quit looking over there. We have a job to do. Well, next thing you know, there's another radio call that comes in that says that there's an eagle down. And an eagle is a term for a U.S. Operator. And at that point, like, immediately my stomach drops. And I'm like, okay, it's all right. Like, we got a job to do. Like, come on, guys, focus. And then next thing you know, it's like there's another eagle down. I was like, okay, fuck this. You guys watch this. I got to go. And I turned and I ran, like, probably in the most unsafe manner that I could have. But I knew, like, I needed to get down there
How far away is it?
Now, like, trying to map it out in my head or remember it, I think it was only like 200 meters, but it was up and over another finger. And when I went up this finger, like this hillside, as I'm coming down, like, I can see them in this small ravine at the base of this other finger. And I can see all, like, the gunfire, the explosions and stuff like that. But as I'm walking down, I'm walking in between two caves. And I'm like, holy shit,
Caves
like, they
everywhere.
are everywhere. And there's blankets in this one, there's cooking utensils in this one. So, I mean, I don't,
be anywhere.
Yeah, so I just walk by and I shoot through the blankets and I shoot through that stuff, and then I just keep going. Like, I have to get there. So I run down there, and there's a group of guys standing here at the base of the ravine. There's people frozen everywhere. Most of it was partner force. They didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Most of the partner force had already ran away. And there's just a massive battle going on in this ravine. So I asked these guys, hey, where are the casualties? They didn't speak English, so I threw my ruck on and just jumped in there. And I see one French operator fighting next to this wall. He's shooting, he's taking cover. I try to talk to him, like, hey man, where are the casualties? And he's just pointing. I'm like, okay, well, the gun speaks. Yeah. Like, that's where we need to fight. So now I'm trying to climb up these rocks to get a better view, and I could see, like, what looked like a body in these rocks. And I get a little bit closer, and as I come up a little bit closer, I peek my head up, and now I'm staring dead face into the center of this cave. And, I mean, not a split second later, it's just now I'm pinned down. So automatic machine guns just...
They saw you right away.
Oh, yeah, because I had my nods on, too, so it was like I'm popping up like this, like turkey peeking up, and then it's just like now me and the French guy, we're pinned down again, and we're trying to shoot back, and I'm trying to kind of work my way back, but I couldn't really move at this point. And the French operator is yelling at the guy on the ground, and he's yelling something in French that I later found out that he was telling him to roll. He's like, roll, roll. And these legs just fly up, and my natural instinct was to run up there and grab him. So I ran up, gun in one hand. My right hand was free, and I just start blazing. Like, I'm shooting at this cave, and they're shooting at us, and somehow, magically, I was able to grab this dude and pull him out of the rocks, shove him down, like, the rest of the little hill that was behind me. And this dude shooting his... Like, I mean, our guns were probably burning red at this point. And I pull him back, and then me and this guy kind of focus for a little bit, shooting until the other French operators come up, pull him out, and now I'm the only one in there. And I fight until these guys could get out, and now I'm kind of stuck at this point, and fighting and throwing grenades and things like that. And then finally, somebody throws a smoke, and I'm like, okay, screw this, dude. I got to get out of here. So I run out, but now I know that there's 2 more casualties at this point. We're trying to come up with a quick game plan, and I'm talking to the snipers that are above, and I say, like, hey, guys, does anybody see him? And he's like, I think I see one of the bodies.
Just to clarify, a casualty on the radio could be an injury. It's not always death,
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Correct. So at this point, we did not know if they were alive or dead, but there was no radio calls coming in from them. And so now seeing the cave, I'm like, okay, maybe they're just staying as quiet as they can so then they don't get seen, they don't get shot again. So I'm talking with the snipers, and they're like, just walk up to this dead tree. And so I'm like creeping as slow as I can, and it's like eerie quiet at this point. And I'm creeping up there, and then as I get closer and closer, now I see the edge of the cave, or I'm basically on the roof of the cave. So like now I see the edge and into the ravine, and now I see one of the bodies laying there.
You're right above it.
Yeah, but it's probably a 15-foot drop to the bottom. And so I see one body, and I keep moving up a little bit closer, and then I see the other body laying right there at the mouth of the cave.
Americans.
And so one of them was my team chief, Diego Pongo, and then the other one was Major Mo Navis, who was the executive officer for the entire company at this point. And I sat there for seconds, maybe a minute. Diego, I knew just by the look of him, he was for sure dead. I was looking at Mo, and he still had his hand on his gun. He had his other hand by his side, pushing him back. And he fought till the last breath that he had, but his eyes, he looked like he was still there. So whispered his name a few times, and no response, no movement, no nothing. I knew he was gone.
And that cave's still full of fighters.
Yeah. So I pulled back for just a second and called up to the commander and said, hey, man, this is the update. Diego and Mo, they're both dead. There's no easy way to say it. There's no easy way to say it over the radio. I'm not going to be formal about it. They're gone. And it's no more a cave clearance operation. It's a recovery mission now. Mm-hmm. And so I told the commander, I was like, hey, they're gone, but I'm coming up with a plan down here, and we're gonna go in and we're gonna try to get them. My only thought was to go up there and just try to chuck grenades into the entrance and possibly get a lull and jump down there and grab them. I went up there for the first time and peeked my head down and over into the cave and chucked a grenade down in there, and immediately the mountain opened up again, and people were firing and contact. So coordinating with the snipers that were above me, I told them, every time I go up here, I need you to shoot these dudes. I was like, I know I'm going to be extremely close to your rounds, but this is the only way. Yeah. So I went up there several more times trying to throw grenades in there, but the contact was way too heavy.
They kind of shooting straight up at you?
Yeah, and there was actually an opposing cave entrance too that we found out that they were in, and then we later found out that there were more fighting positions in the wall, of the face of the mountain behind us, because later, so once I attempted that time, we pulled back for the medevac of the casualty. After we had tried to medevac of the French casualty, so he survived. He was shot through and through in the left leg, and then shot once in the top of the head. It went through his helmet and gave him a haircut. It was freaking wild. Crazy. Wild. And so we medevaced him. He was hoisted off of the mountain. So a medic came down and hooked him up to basically a sled, a Skedco. Hoisted him up. They took him out. And then shortly after that, I had called in an Apache airstrike because none of our grenades were doing anything. The snipers couldn't affect them. So I was like, okay, let's see if the Apache can thread a hellfire in through there. Yeah. We'll shoot the 30 millimeter grenades in there and see if that does anything. So They shoot 220 rounds, I think it was, at the cave. 0 effect.
These caves are insane.
Insane. Like, I mean, this one had these rocks, like, stacked, like, perfectly for them to have these murder holes, like, these fighting positions all over this thing. Like, it was the most wild, insane cave.
It's wild. You think about, like, going up in the mountains of Montana and building a cave. Seems like it'd take, like, 10 years.
Yeah.
Just to build one.
Yeah.
They have them everywhere.
It was pretty wild, man. So once that gun run wasn't successful, I was like, hey man, like shoot a hellfire in here, like thread that thing right into the mouth of that cave. And those are a little bit harder to get approved, and I had to go like mark 10-digit grid right on top of the cave. I was like, this is your location, fire here. And so sure as shit, they got it approved. They shot a hellfire at it. It might have moved 2 of the rocks out of the way. Like,
crazy.
And at that point, I called the commander back, like thinking in my own head, like, dude, I don't know what to do.
At this point, how many guys did you feel like were still in that cave? How many bad guys did you think were in there?
Man, I had no idea.
Really?
Yeah. So the guys that were on the other side said that they could see a couple dudes coming back and forth. I think we had killed at least 1 or 2 already, but it just seemed like there was an endless amount of dudes in there. Because it's like, how are you still functioning like this after we have put this many rounds, this many grenades, like
Hellfire.
Yeah, a hellfire, Carl G rockets, like all sorts of stuff.
Wild.
And I threw like smoke grenades in there, so it's like they're coughing up. Like, man, it's insane. They're cockroaches, I swear.
And are you hanging out with are some of your teammates right with you at this time?
Yeah. So, at this point now, we had regrouped and we had now a bunch of dudes in line. So we kind of came back together and we developed a plan, and this was like our final attempt, our final plan. And we had been taking contact from different areas that we had no idea about. Like, there was just rounds coming from all over the place. And so we basically just made this plan, like, okay, we're all going to get online and we're all going to kind of push through this mountain. And we're like, you guys up here, you're going to shoot at random fighting positions, like, and then we're going to kind of go up here and suppress the cave, try to get a lull and get down there and get them. And so when we all got online and we all started pushing up there, contact started happening. They knew that it was happening, so we were shooting at the cave, throwing grenades again, and then as soon as I basically got to the furthest point that I could get to at the top of the cave, is like I felt like I got smacked by a baseball bat in my leg, and like just this massive shock went down me, and I was like, holy shit. Had to kind of jump back and get down and evaluate what the hell just happened to me.
Yeah.
And I looked down at my leg, and now blood's starting to trickle out of it, and I was like, oh shit. I like looked back at find my medic, and I crawled over to him. I was like, hey dude, I think I just got shot. He's like, what do you mean you think you just got shot? And I was like, yeah, my leg, it hurts and it's bleeding a little bit.
Oh man.
But so he's like, well, try to walk. I tried to get up. I was like, no dude, it hurts too bad. So one thing led to another, man. He evaluated my leg. I couldn't put any weight on it. And
in the calf?
Right in the shin. It missed my bone. It looked like it only went into the shin muscle, but for some reason there was so much pain. Later found out that it severed my nerve right off the bat, just kind of destroyed that whole thing. My superficial peroneal nerve, so it was one of my sensory nerves, so it's super fucking painful.
Oh, an important one.
Yeah.
Dang it.
But not really important for motor function, so I could still walk.
Yeah.
It was just very painful.
Pain.
Yeah. And so at this point, like now I'm a casualty. Everyone's tired. We're almost empty on ammo. We have no water.
How long were you out there at this point, you
At
think?
this point, we had been fighting for about 5 or 6 hours.
Crazy.
So the whole mission itself, we had probably been out there for 8, 9 hours. And so the assault force had no water left. We were very low on ammo. We were waiting for the QRF, the quick reaction force, to come in. And now I'm a casualty. And we're trying to figure it out. And I told the commander, like, look, we still have to do something. Like, there's got to be an explanation. And he said, like, you guys need to pull back. They had been doing other planning, that there was another unit that was going to come in later that night and recover those guys. So a special missions unit, which happened to be the Delta Force guys, ended up coming in that night, bringing like 60-something Americans in there. And they also ran in to a lot of trouble. As soon as they got to the cave, they did some call-outs. Whatever it was, they ended up going down there, killing four bad guys right off the bat. Suicide vest cranked off inside of there, blowing 2 of the operators off of the cave, like where I was working. I was like, that's a 15-foot drop. And they fell all the way into the bottom. But luckily, nobody got super injured from that. They were able to recover both of the Americans. And then, like, talking about the extensive, like, networks of those caves, he said that they walked in there and, like, as soon as they saw, like, rows of, like, different tunnels going different ways and big berthing areas, they're like, no, we're getting out of here now. They pulled out, they rescued our teammates, they brought them home, and then they dropped like 20,000 pounds of bombs. That might be an exaggeration, but it was close to that.
Crazy.
So, yeah, destroyed that whole side of that mountain right there. So
Insane.
yeah.
So the round in your shin, do you think, was that just like one of those random ones from the side of the mountain?
I think so. So, like, I guess what I was going to get into was how we found out that there was multiple different fighting positions. Was there was a group of our operators just to the south of me, 10 meters, maybe 15 meters. And I mean, well, I guess so in yards, like we'll just say 30 yards.
Yeah.
And on a steep mountainside that could feel like kind of a ways. And these guys took contact from somewhere on the side of the mountain. Come to find out that our dog handler, who's a massive human, he's 240 pounds, like he's 6'4", he's a huge guy.
Yeah.
He took 6 rounds, but didn't know because his adrenaline's going so much, and it didn't hit like his body. 2 of them hit his plates. So one of them broke his push to talk. One of them hit like right in his magazine, so it went through his mag. The other one like went through his dump pouch where he puts his extra mags in.
He didn't even know?
Didn't even know until they're medevacing me, and he goes down to like talk on the radio, and he looks and he's like, holy shit. It's like exploded. My
right on his chest.
Yeah. And
crazy.
So that was pretty wild to see, just because I mean I only had my perspective of where I was until I start talking to the dudes after the mission and find out this dude gets blasted a whole bunch.
6
and
rounds.
Yeah, it was wild. So
was it hard for you to get pulled off the mountain?
So I'm a very stubborn person. So as soon as this happened and like how chaotic everything else was, originally like I would have been put on a litter and they would have carried me because of how bad my pain was. Well, at this point, like I didn't want any more guns out of the fight, so I just said like, hey, I'm gonna walk. You guys just make a wedge around me and protect me if I need it. Yeah. So I tried walking up the mountain as far as I could so then we could get extracted. I wanted to be extracted with my team, but my pain ended up becoming too bad. And as I made it, I think I probably walked 300 meters, but up the mountain. I didn't take drugs until I was about 10 steps away from where I was stopping. The medic came up, he's like, dude, just take the fucking pills. Or
morphine.
take the Yeah, the lollipop.
Yeah.
And so I started sucking on the morphine lollipop, and then so he came up to me and was like, hey man, like you got to take the pain meds. You're in too much pain. I already called in the medevac for you. Like you're getting out. So I was pretty bummed because I wanted to stay there till the end. And, but that was the right thing to do. So we hung out, and the medevac came to get me, and so they had to bring in the hoist for me because it was too steep. You couldn't land a helicopter on there. So the medic comes down and scoops me up, picks me up, and brings me into the helicopter. And the medic was like, how's your pain? Touches my leg. And I was like, oh shit, it hurts, man. And then like at the same time, they hit me with ketamine. And then that was my first introduction to ketamine, and it was not a good one. I immediately like went into this like super bad trip where I got sucked back down in the mountain, and I see Mo and Diego in their same spot, but I could hear their voices like yelling at me. And at this point I couldn't touch my push to talk, trying to talk back to them. And
what?
It was wild.
Right away?
Right away, immediately. And then I came out of it when I was like getting taken off of the helicopter and brought into like the hospital area to get treated. And so it was just, it did not feel real, just how much.
With the ketamine too, yeah, like that weird, that's insane.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, man. So got evaluated there. Like it seemed like a pretty superficial wound at the time. Seemed like it was just a little bit of nerve pain, a little bit of muscle pain. Didn't look like that much. There was no exit wound. So what I'm thinking is like a ricochet came off and just smacked me. We don't really know. There's a little bit of stuff still in my leg. So
it's crazy there's no exit.
Yeah. And especially for the amount of damage it did inside of my leg.
Yeah.
But I did a lot of calf raises. Maybe that was.
It's all those calf raises at the gym.
Right.
Because it was probably a 5.56.
I would assume it was 7.62, just because of the. Well, I guess because they had M4s and M16s too.
Yeah. So who knows?
Yeah. But when they told me, when I was there getting evaluated, they were like, "You'll be walking in 2 weeks. Like, no big deal." I was happy about it. Like, cool, man. I'm super glad to get back to the team. I get back to the team house, and it was not getting any better. 2 weeks go by. I called back up there, and I was like, look, dude, I still can't walk. I'm still in crutches. I need more help, which was probably the hardest thing for me to do, is to admit that, like, I got to leave the team and go back and do some more treatment. Mm-hmm. But I thought I was just going to go up there, and they were going to reevaluate me, maybe give me some more drugs, and then I'd be back at the team's house. Well, when I get up there, they're like, nah, dude, it's a little bit too severe. Like, you're going to have to go back to the States. So now I have to call my team back, and I'm like, hey, guys, like, I got to make the call, man. Like, I'm not going to be able to walk. I can't help you guys. I can't stay here. I have to go back for more treatment.
That's hard.
And so, I mean, at this point, there's just a whole whirlwind of emotions, because, like, to me, in that mission, like, I felt like an absolute failure. Like, those guys were in my team. I felt like I should have been the one to pull them out, to bring them home. I felt like I should have been the one to, keep my team together and, yeah, man, I just felt like, I had failed them and I had failed the mission. And then when I had to tell them that I had to go home.
Oh, yeah.
I just felt so fucking bad for leaving them, especially in that time. Like, it was hard. But then I ended up getting back to the States on April 1st of 2020. And when COVID was running rampant through the entire world, I guess.
It had just blown up, right?
It had just
like the first shutdowns.
Yeah. And it was absolutely insane, because I couldn't get a flight home. And this is kind of where my Well, this is where the start of all of my struggles happened too, because I kind of had to find my own way back home. I got brought home by some Navy SEALs. We got to the States, and then from the States, now I had to get my own flight back to North Carolina. I had to book my own shuttles. Had nobody
Crazy.
help us out.
Yeah.
My wife and a few of our friends were at the airport in Wilmington when I landed down in North Carolina. So they brought me home, but I was forced to do 2 weeks of quarantine before I could talk to anybody. I didn't get a visit from a psych. I didn't get a visit from a doctor or a physical therapist. Nobody fucking called me.
For 2 weeks?
For 2 weeks. And then I went to Walter Reed to do my evaluations, do my surgeries, stay up there for a month. Got no visitors, no calls, nothing from the command still.
That feels so weird, dude, with
and
the country shut down right as you get home.
It was a ghost town up there. And I mean, Maryland or DC area,
Lockdown.
it was wild that there was nobody there. You could drive down the road and barely see a single soul. Everybody was inside. So it made it even more eerie and weird, especially walking through Walter Reed, one of the busiest military hospitals. There was nobody there, which was nice for me because I got into appointments really quickly, but
That's bizarre.
yeah, it was insane.
The timing.
So luckily I had a really good support network from my buddies. I got those kind of phone calls. It was the people who truly mattered. They were there for me. But the weird part is I just risked my life to save 2 Americans, and I saved a Frenchman, and now I don't get
You're
anything.
on your own.
I'm on my own completely, and so feeling like a failure, feeling like I just left my team, now feeling like the community for some reason doesn't want me or whatever it was.
Doesn't care, yeah.
So now all of these weird things are going through my mind. When then all of this weird stuff starts happening in America with, certain mishaps that ends up delaying our teammates to get buried 6 months later. So, which works out because our team was still in country. We wanted them to be back for the funerals, but for the families, man, that is so freaking hard for them to just sit there and mourn all day long,
6 months.
For 6 months waiting.
Before a funeral. For Mo and Diego.
Yeah. And then it was then there was restrictions on numbers because of COVID. Well, Arlington's only letting 20 people in. Well, the family wants everybody to be there. This is not just a 10, 20 person funeral. This was a hero that just was killed in combat, an American hero, and nobody can be there for it. But yet there's other circumstances that are happening where guys are getting carried in gold caskets with horses.
Couple hundred people,
and national level senators and advisors and things like that at their funerals. And then what do we get? Nothing.
Crazy.
So yeah, it was just a wild time in the world, and it really made things that much more difficult for recovery. So.
And you have just extreme pain in your leg through this whole time.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with that complex regional pain syndrome right off the bat. So my leg would swell and discolor, become super hypersensitive. I couldn't put hardly an ounce of pressure on it because of how fat and swollen this thing was, and just I couldn't wear pants, I couldn't wear socks. Any little type of compression or breeze, the weight of a sheet from my blankets would hurt.
Crazy.
Dude, it was insane. So all of my surgeries were to try to fix the nerve at first. And then I tried all these different stimulators. I had an external stimulator that was implanted in my leg. It was a single wire that attacked the sciatic nerve to try to stimulate the nervous system below my knee. That didn't work, but it was a 60-day trial, so I had to have this thing in there for 60 days. And then I was on a whole bunch of medications to try to calm down the nervous system, to try to help out with my depression and all of my other pain. And I kept getting reevaluated, and then finally they found this spinal cord stimulator thing called the dorsal root ganglion stimulator. So I was super afraid of doing something like that because it's a stimulator that's the size of a dip can, or the size of like that lid basically, or the top of that cup, that's implanted in my back, and I have 4 wires that run through my L3, L4, L5, and S1. So they basically run through like sideways through my spine like this to stimulate the nerve root system that runs down through my leg. And essentially it's supposed to keep all that pain down there.
Pretty rare too, right?
It is a very rare case, and it's super hard to treat. And people can go into remission from it, that you can basically cure yourself somehow. I guess it's hit or miss. Some people live with it forever. This symptom can actually like travel up through the nervous system and bounce into different extremities. It can like travel up the leg and do different weird things and cause way more pain in different areas. So that's kind of what the stimulator is supposed to be doing, is helping with that. So I got that installed, and I, trying to get back into my normal lifestyle, not wanting to accept the fact that like I am hurt. As soon as I would get these surgeries, I would try to immediately like go right back into working out or trying to go walk or whatever it was. Like I cannot sit still for very long.
Yeah.
And so I get my first surgery, my first round with this spinal cord stimulator, and then somehow my wires move. Like they slip out of my back. 2 of the wires like pulled back like out of my spine, so they were kind of stimulating the wrong part of the nervous system or nerve root system, and was causing way more pain. But I had to wait for the 8 to 10 weeks of the healing process because my back and all of the surrounding area got like infected, surface level infected by the glue and the adhesive. From all the surgeries, I had just developed like an sensitivity to adhesives and the cleaning agents. And we found out by the back surgery. So
oh man,
it was
one thing
nasty,
after another,
man. Like it was so nasty. Every night I'm changing my sheets. I'm bleeding on my couch. Like, dude, it was miserable. Like my shirts are sticking to my back, and like it was wild, man. Like none of my surgeries went well because I started. So once I went back to get the revision, they added an extra wire, and they also decided that it was time to amputate this nerve. So they amputated the superficial peroneal nerve, and they basically suture it into a muscle. They call it a targeted muscle reinnervation. So they just take the nerve and give it a place to live in your muscle, so like it can kind of fire and rejuvenate, and now it's alive from here up.
They're up. They cut the end off.
Yeah, so essentially it should be dead from here down, but the phantom limb pains are a real thing. It's almost like that nerve and all of the sensations are still there, and it's still extremely painful, still super hypersensitive. And the stimulator is supposed to be helping out with all of that stuff, but it's like it helped to an extent. The meds help to an extent, but at this point, it's kind of pushing past all of that.
And this is the first time in your life you've been introduced to all these meds, right?
Yes.
And what were they doing to you?
Slowly killing me. Man, like trying to find the right med for like depression or anxiety or pain, you have to go through so many trials, and there would be meds that like would make me completely like just a flat, like numb piece of garbage. Like I couldn't have emotions, couldn't cry, couldn't laugh, couldn't be angry. Like I would just be there.
Just a zombie.
Just a zombie. And then all I would be doing, it was almost like I was more depressed and more flat, like in my own feelings. So then you get off that, and then you find one that just all of a sudden makes you more angry and more agitated, and then it's just all of these like ebbs and flows on top of all the shit that I'm already going through.
And they just hand these out, like as many
candy.
pills as you want?
Pretty much. Like, you do have a say for your path. You know, like you can be like, I don't want these meds, I don't want this, but it's like if you deny something, the chances of them actually wanting to help you are very little. So it's like, okay, well, you're in this for my best interest, I think, maybe. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a shot, but if I tell you if it doesn't work, then I would appreciate it if you help me. But it was almost like I would get all of these medications prescribed and then get forgotten about until things got too bad.
Come back.
And then I would be like, yo, like, this is not working. Like, on our follow-ups, I told you, like, I don't think these doses are right, and you say, give it some more time. And it's a trend from every freaking doctor. Like, if
Try
it's
these.
medicines, like, it's like, here, try this. Well, I come back and I tell you I don't think it's working, and you tell me to try it longer or up the dose and try it longer. Like, that's not what I'm telling you by when I say it's not working. Like, if I'm telling you I'm more angry, I'm more depressed, I'm more anxious, like you would think that there's something else that you can do instead of pushing more meds. It's like, so you're going to counteract this med with this one now. Well, now these two are making me more anxious, so let's just give him something to calm the anxiousness now. Now I'm depressed, and it's like,
So
what?
many pills.
Yeah.
Were they addicting?
There were a few that did feel addicting. I don't know if it was like the actual pill itself that was addicting or if it was like, I would say it was the feelings that you get from them. So it's like, I mean, Oxy, right? Like those are actually addicting. And then there's other pills that kind of give you like, I don't know, different sensations for concentration or for sleep. One of those were probably my biggest ones were the sleep ones. Is like I could not sleep unless I took meds. So I would almost become reliant on the meds, which felt like made me like I was addicted to them.
Just to sleep.
Yeah.
And this was for like a full year, right?
Yeah, so I was on a whole bunch of meds for a full year. I started to titrate down, but like those cycles after, especially after surgeries, it was it was pretty rough. And like at that point, I was kind of convinced that I needed some of these meds to get through the day. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes, you know, like not all meds are bad, right? Like to an extent, it can help you get to that clear-minded state to where you can actually work on what you need to work on. But I feel like meds are kind of just like that stepping stone for you to be able to get that little bit of clarity to get back on track. To get moving. And then once you get moving, start titrating off of that stuff, because after a while you do become reliant on them and you do think like, I can't do anything unless I have these meds. Well, that's not the case. Like anything, I feel like in our bodies, like if we set our mind to it, if we treat it properly, we can fix these things without the meds. Sometimes you just need that little boost though to help you out to get to there.
Yeah. And your wife is with you this whole time?
She is.
She's been through a lot now.
Yeah. So she's a trooper, man. Like whenever I got shot, one of my best friends actually came to our doorstep and notified her, because the way the Marine Corps does it, whenever you get shot or wounded over in combat, the Marine Corps will call you. So if you're not dead, they'll call your family and they'll say, hey, so-and-so service member has been wounded in action, status unknown.
Oh,
and they
man.
basically leave. They'll either call and it'll be kind of a recording like that, and then that's it. So no more details. Or they call you. If you don't answer, there's already somebody at your door. So my buddy already knew the protocol basically, and he was in my driveway and knew that she was about to get the call. And as soon as he was notified, like that she did or didn't receive the call, he was going to be there regardless.
But she didn't know if you were dead or alive?
So she ignored that call. And then my buddy showed up. And we had a doorbell cam, but she couldn't hardly see who was out there or what they were doing. And then when she saw through the window, the uniform, like it was like my heart dropped.
Oh.
And then I guess when Josh came in through the door, Josh was my buddy that came there, and then my other buddy, D, they came in with their uniforms on, but no chaplain. I don't know how she put all of this together, but she was like, because I saw that there was no chaplain, I knew that he was alive. He had to be alive. But like, it was just hard for her to believe, and like, it was just, 2.5 years before that when she saw me getting in my uniform to go notify Talon's wife.
Yeah.
So she knew that something bad happened, and I actually had it. So whenever I got medevaced, I was able to borrow one of the nurses' phones, and I shot her a message and said, hey, like, this is Nick. I don't have good service right now, so I'm using somebody else's phone, but I just want to say goodnight and I love you, and I didn't say anything else. And then Josh and them show up, because if something like that happens, you're not allowed to notify anybody, but that's my fucking wife.
Yeah.
And I knew what was coming next. So I wanted her to know that, like,
you're not dead.
That I'm not dead.
Yeah, that's wild.
And yeah, so she said it was still confusing for her, because she's like, well, he just sent me this text, like, what the fuck is going on? So I was like, finally, like, being able to talk to her. And then, like, when the doctors told me that you're evaluated and you get to stay in country, and I told her that over the phone, like, that obviously didn't go very well, because she's like, you need to come home. But throughout every surgery, going up to Walter Reed, we have 2 dogs at home. So we would have to pack up everything for the dogs. We would have to pack up everything for me. And because I couldn't walk, she would have to pack up all of my stuff. Drive up there 6 hours up to Walter Reed, do the surgeries. She's getting me food, cooking for me. And then, she was my caretaker for a whole year. I had another surgery April 2021, and it was a very small surgery. I was feeling really good. I was still walking with a cane every now and then. And I got this last surgery. I thought everything was good. I'm 10 days post-op, and I get hit with this crazy infection. I ended up going septic. I had 106 fever. I nearly died. I started, like, violently throwing up in the house. Like, it was insane. I couldn't walk. My leg swelled to, like, 2 times the size that it was. My pain probably increased. So my pain was worse then than it was right when I got shot. And having a setback like that again when I felt like I was about to be walking the very next day was such a... dude, it
mentally,
sucked. Yeah. Because I was starting to work out again. I felt like I was being able to move again. I was so excited. And then I get hit with this thing, and now I'm back in the hospital.
Oh.
I'm back on ketamine, back on all these IVs and all this stuff. And it just felt like it set me way back, especially mentally.
Yeah.
And that right there, though, was probably the hardest part, because, like, the physical issues, like, I knew that I kind of had a little bit of, insight with. Like, there's a lot of professionals that can help out with that side. But the mental side, I had no idea, like, how bad it could actually get. Mm-hmm. And being alone all that time, feeling like a failure, feeling like I was forgotten about, and now feeling like I'm never going to be able to walk again or do the things that I love again, it was just... It was so demoralizing. And then during all of this, I'm getting evaluated for medical retirement. They're telling me, like, I can't be a special operator anymore because of the injuries that I have, because of the spinal cord stimulator. Man, it was just like life-changing events after another.
Yeah, and you were, like, on the top of the hill, like a raider. Life was pretty good.
I felt like I was I felt like I was pretty dang good at my job, not to try to sound like conceited or anything, but like, I mean, I loved that job. I defined myself by that job. Like, that was me. I was a special operator. That's all I knew how to do.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to do 20 years in the Marine Corps, or, you know, spend the rest of my career at a higher level tier unit. I had all these goals, like I was saying before, and feeling like I got stripped of all those goals, feeling like I got stripped of my dreams, like I could not find the light at the end of the tunnel. I was like, well, this is all I know. This is all I wanted to know. Like,
yeah,
I didn't understand what was going to happen. I felt like I had no more purpose in life.
Surgery after surgery, and then pill after pill. Are you drinking again at this time?
I tried to stay sober as long as I could. Once we started getting closer to the funerals, I started to drink again. I started to get back into my old coping mechanisms. I started to gain a bunch of weight too because of all the surgeries and then the drinking, didn't make the pain any better, didn't help with the mental state. And it was like mid-July of 2020. I was hitting the bottle hard again, and we are getting prepared for Mo's funeral. And when I couldn't even like talk or breathe because I'm crying so hard as soon as I see Mo's casket, like as soon as I walk, like after they do the roll call and the taps play, I couldn't keep myself together. I walked into the back and I went up to the medical officer and I was like, I need help now. Like,
full breakdown.
I'm losing it. I need to talk to somebody. It's like, I don't care what it fucking takes. Like, I need help. And
were you having suicidal thoughts?
No, not at the time. Things, you know, I felt pretty strong emotionally and mentally for a while, especially once I started to talk to somebody at the beginning. I felt like I've never wanted to quit anything in my life except for that little demon, you know, that comes in when you're pushing through something hard. You know, it's like there's always these weird thoughts that pop up into my head, and then I was able to talk to somebody. I was able to help myself. This is when I really started to dig deep into these like holistic activities, doing yoga, doing art therapy, music therapy, recreational activities outdoors. I was afforded opportunities to go on different hunts. I went on an amazing whitetail hunt down in Texas. I really started to take care of myself, but I was still in the Marine Corps at this time. Mm-hmm. Once, you know, I started doing all of these treatments, I started to really like transition out of the Marine Corps, or at least like accept that I was getting retired. Dark thoughts started to creep back in. It was very hard once again, and now it's getting real. Like now I'm transitioning out of the Marine Corps. I'm going through a transition program. I had found a little bit of light, you know, like I knew that I wanted to do something to stay in the community. When I was actually afforded the opportunity to go on that hunt that I was talking about in Texas, when I was there, I flew into Texas and I got to see all of these like amazing Americans. Like all of this small Texas town gets together, the veterans land, and when we get off this plane, like there's all these people there. The high school had the band out, like they were playing,
so awesome.
Playing as we were driving down the road, and then we get to these like beautiful ranches. And I got to go hunt on this high fence ranch, and I'm still using a cane at this time. This family, like they treated me like a son. Like it was really cool, man. They would drive me up to these stands. They would help me up, get in there, and then like we finally found this monster buck on the very last day. And I'm sitting in this tree stand, and it was like a 200-yard shot. I had just got this new rifle, so I'm like super nervous. I'm like, well, I'm a sniper, but I don't know if I can shoot this gun. I'm like shaking. Like I've never killed a buck before either, so yeah. I've done a few Like I've hunted a little bit. My buddy Josh, who was actually the one who notified my wife, he had been teaching me a bunch about hunting. So him and I would go all the time, but I'd never killed a buck. I wanted one so bad. And this monster just walks out, and now I'm like, I got buck fever. I'm shaking. I'm breathing hard. Like my heart rate's at 150. I'm freaking out. And so this thing walks out, and I get a perfect shot. Nice, bright, broadside shot. He goes down, and, you know, I'm taking it all in. It's one of the most amazing moments that I've had. I'm like, I didn't put ear pro in either, so my ears are ringing real loud. And
pretty common.
Yeah, so after that, like I walk out of the thing, and I have my cane in my hand, and I was like, you know what, like, I'm going to take this opportunity. I want to walk to this thing. Like, no matter about how bad it hurts, like, I want to do this.
No cane.
No cane. And so it was a 200-yard shot, so I knew I had at least 200 yards to walk. So I dropped my cane there and walked up to him, and, dude, it was the most magical moment. Like, seeing this just beautiful rack on this amazing buck just laying there, like, that was for me. Like, I mean, that hunt gave me another life to just really enjoy. Like, I mean,
yeah,
being able to harvest that animal, being able to like fully embrace that experience and immerse myself in that moment, like being completely present, like it changed me. Like it made me open my eyes to like more of my recovery, more of my openness. Like I ended up opening it up to these people and being able to talk. Like there's something about hunting, being out in the woods, being with people and sharing those moments. Like they are just truly amazing.
Magical.
It is. And it was actually from that moment that I was like, I know what I want to do. Like I want to help dudes from here on out. Like maybe I'll start a nonprofit and take dudes out hunting. Well, when I started to really think about it, like, oh, I don't know if I'll be able to like walk or hike or ruck through the mountains, but like I know where I want to end up. I want to go to Montana. I want to be able to immerse these guys in the mountains of Montana, and then teach these guys and guide them through these different holistic methods to healing, because I know that they're helping me.
Had you been to Montana before?
No, I hadn't. I got the chance to visit actually during like one of my recovery periods. I came out here to do like a fly fishing trip on the Yellowstone, which was absolutely amazing. So like my first experience was floating down Paradise Valley kind of.
Pretty awesome.
Oh yeah. It was life-changing, but it, like from that moment I was like, this is where I need to be. So I take that back. I had been out here before. I proposed to my wife on top of Lone Peak.
No way.
Yeah, so we came out here the winter of 2018/19. So it was just a year before I went to Iraq. And we did a 10-day trip to Big Sky. So I didn't get to explore too much, but we were down there snowboarding, skiing for that whole time. And I took her up on top of Lone Peak and proposed to her and said, hey, like in 10 years when I retire from the military, we should come out here and raise a family. Like
Crazy.
This is everything that we ever dreamed of. She's like, I'm with you. So,
and it's happening.
Yeah,
just in a different way.
Yeah. So we just had to speed up our goals. But
yeah.
I mean, shit, when they told us like, hey, like you're getting out, like there was no real hesitation. We were like, let's sell this house and let's move out there. Like let's start a new life now. So we did it, man. Like we didn't wait around. We moved out here. We started the nonprofit out in North Carolina and started developing it. And it was a way for me to find my purpose again and find my drive. Like, because I felt like I had nothing anymore. Like how am I gonna stop being an operator and just living a normal life? How am I gonna reintegrate into society and like feel like a normal person? Like I don't know what it's like to be a civilian anymore. And all of these veterans talking about how hard transition is, I was like, there's no way it's that hard. There's no way. Like, I'll be fine. But like, I haven't told many people this, but like the nonprofit, it gives me a lot of hope and a lot of purpose, and but there's definitely a lot of tough times still.
Yeah.
I did become suicidal at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. I never thought that I would reach that point. And sitting there, feeling like there's no way out. I just wanted to see, I guess, if I could do it. And ended up putting a gun to my head a couple times. Fucking hell, I can't believe I just said that. It's not easy at all to deal with, and it's not easy to tell anybody this. It's like I'm supposed to be some hero now, and I feel like I'm not supposed to be able to share my feelings, or I feel like I can't be vulnerable sometimes because I'm supposed to be strong. I'm supposed to be somebody that people look up to, but we're all human, and when this shit hits, dude, and it hits hard, like, having the support network that I've had out here has been, like, seriously what I needed most in my life. The community, the passion behind the community, like, it's so hard to live with these demons by yourself. Like, I'm super fortunate to have the wife that I do, to have the family that I do. Now the baby girl on the way, like, I'm put here for a reason. I feel like everything does truly happen for a reason. I was introduced to you guys for a reason. Like, there was a reason why I didn't go through with killing myself. Like, no matter how hard this shit gets, like, I don't ever want to quit. I don't want to quit on myself. I don't want to quit on my family. I don't want to quit on my baby girl. Like,
and you're helping lots of other guys now.
We are.
And you couldn't have helped them without your story, though.
Yeah.
Like what you went through allowed you to help a lot of operators.
Yeah. And that's the thing, man, is like, we all need somebody to believe in. We all need something to believe in. And whether that's believing in yourself or believing in a higher power, sharing these stories and being able to relate to people, being able to see that you're not that you're not alone, like, it helps so much, because our stories might be completely different, like military or civilian life, but it doesn't matter that mine happened in combat. It doesn't matter that yours happened here in the States, like a moral or mental injury can crush somebody no matter how it was obtained. And like being able to share these stories together and being able to relate and understand, like, you have these exact same symptoms as me, like you're anxious, you're depressed, you're hypervigilant all the time, like, but you lived this kind of lifestyle, like, well, how did you cope with all of these things? Like, how did you manage this? And, you know, how the hell did you pull yourself out of these dark times? Like, learning from everybody that I've met and learning their coping mechanisms and learning their ways to heal, like, it's almost like anything that you do, like in the fitness world and the nutrition world. If you become stagnant, if you like act like you know everything, like that's the time that you fail. Like when you feel like you've made it, like you haven't. You gotta find that next step. You gotta find that next pathway. Like you gotta continue your education. You gotta continue learning and trying. Like because it's like you feel like you get a step ahead, and then something else happens. It's like now you're a step back, and now you have to play catch up. Like, it's a never-ending battle, but you're always working on yourself. You're always working on something, and I just like with this nonprofit, it's been amazing to be able to see the lives that we're impacting, and to be able to see how it's ultimately helping me push past all of my struggles.
Isn't that funny? Like, the more you help people, it's actually helping yourself more.
Yeah. It's been very eye-opening and very, I'm very grateful, man, like for the people that I've met, for the people that we've been able to help so far. The team, the Talons Reach Foundation team has been absolutely amazing. Like, they know when times get rough, that like, yeah, I don't know, man. It's just, it's been a blessing, yeah. Like these, and then moving out here, finding this community and finding, you know, the hunting community and the fitness community. It's like, I'm able to reintegrate myself into society better than I expected, because I am finding that community. I'm finding the brotherhood that, like, I felt like I left behind, you know. But being able to like make new friends and join these types of communities, and like being able to get out in there into the wilderness. Like, I've met a lot of guys who are been very, very accepting of me and like my kind of like disabilities, and helping me out with different hunts, and then like encouraging me to go on new hunts these next seasons and things like that. Like, it gives me something to look forward to, and it gives me a good group of people to do it with, because I don't want to do any of this on my own. Like my own recovery pathway, I don't want to do that by myself. I don't want, like, yeah.
Well, you just had your first group out for Talons Reach, the inaugural first group of operators. Almost all of them were super senior from all the different branches of the military. And they're all going through this stuff, right?
Yeah.
In some sort or fashion.
Yeah.
And they're all finding different methods that work, and not the same method works for each guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty eye-opening as well. It's like we wanted to give a wide variety of different methods. And you see, like, when you get these guys check in, like, some of them are super angry. Some of them are super worked up, super hyper-vigilant. Some of them are really depressed and quiet and reserved. All of them don't want to open up in front of a group of strangers. And then by that last day, like, you see them all joking, laughing, relaxed, like super calm. And then finding the common interests and things from different branches. We had operators or Special Forces guys from every single branch, minus Space Force, but it was really cool, man. We had 8 Eagles. That's what we call our participants, Eagles. So we had 8 Eagles come out, and it was wild, man. Like, you had some guys who really enjoyed doing yoga. You had some guys who were probably some of the most angry that really loved to do painting. We did we made brooms. We had a volunteer that made like straw brooms, and he was teaching the group of guys this stuff, and one of the guys was just extremely angry. He did not want, like, this broom was pissing him off so bad, so he had to continue to take breaks, and then he would come back and finish it. And then by the end of it, he was like, man, like, I really learned a lot about myself during that time. Like, I'm super happy that I did it, but fuck that.
Yeah. Making a broom.
Yeah. It's funny things like that you find out about yourself too. But so now it's like we're pushing right along. We have our next program coming up in August. We'll have Eagles come out for that. We'll be doing like fly fishing out on high mountain lakes and doing more yoga, more meditation. It's been great, and it is very rewarding to be able to see this all come together, but also to see that there are people who are realizing that, like, that stigma behind the mental health piece, like, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, you're not weak if you go ask for help. You're not weak if you're vulnerable. You're not weak if you say that there's something wrong. Like, in my eyes, that's more courage than holding it all in, because you're only affecting you and your family if you're holding that shit in. Like, you're doing yourself a disservice. Like, the minute we realize that it's okay to open up and it's okay to talk to people, like, that weight that's on your shoulders, it's going to be lifted off. Like, there's people out there that want to help you. There's people out there that want to be next to you. Like, our goal, man, like, we want to make sure that, like, these guys know that they're not alone. Like, there's other people struggling. There's other people that are willing to share their story and willing to do anything that they can to help these guys out. And it's like, I have devoted my life and my recovery to being able to share my story and being able to hopefully use my experience to shine light, like, on these different types of, pathways that you can take, but also, like, being able to open up to complete strangers.
Yeah.
I literally just told people my deepest, darkest secret that I never, ever wanted to say, but if I don't say it, then how do I know that it's not going to help somebody? Like, we can pull out of any of this stuff. Like, we have to be willing to put in the work. It's hard work. It is. Like, with anything, prepping for a deployment, prepping for a hunt, prepping for a job interview. Like, all of this stuff is stressful. And there's no reason to have to do it on your own. Like, we have a team, we have a community of people who are there waiting to help you. You just have to be able to talk about it. You have to be able to reach out and be like, hey man, like, I'm struggling right now. I need help.
It's really interesting too, because it's certainly spiritual. Like, thousands of years of spiritual research and learnings make it very obvious that keeping secrets is like the devil's playground. So the devil's super stoked when we're just tucking everything in and not talking about it. And God knows that, like, bringing light into sin, bringing light into our struggles is like the number one solution to start improving those situations. So, like, part of that stigma is so spiritual, because like the devil does not want us talking about what's going on, because he knows that's just gonna brew up and fester and start destroying us from the inside out. And I think the idea behind a man getting to a point where they really don't have any secrets is like gonna really start transforming their life.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. It's a good way to put it.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Love
thank
ya.
you. Love you, dude.
Appreciate your story.
Yeah.
Stoked for your next group with Talons Reach, and it's gonna change a lot of guys' lives.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me and accepting me into your guys' community. It's been awesome. Thanks for pushing me through these workouts too.
You bet. Love you, buddy.
Yeah, man. Oh, watch out, Fletch. Thanks, dude.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that was awesome.